What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So pretty much every single day this week, there's going to be a big event or potentially something impacting SoFi. So starting off on Monday, even though we don't have that much in actual true data points, that is the eve or the last day before SoFi's earnings. So anticipate a hell of a lot of volatility. I'll go over the technicals near the end of the video, so some key levels to really watch for. But even Monday, which generally will be quiet for the broader market, is going to be active for SoFi. Tuesday, we have JOLT numbers, and this is something that Powell was really going to be looking at to justify rate cuts, as what he's kind of alluded to in the past. He's been somewhat satisfied by the inflationary data, but it's the labor data. That's what he's really watching. So essentially, this one will be a big one. Aside from that, on Wednesday, we have ADP employment as well as GDP. And then to cap off Wednesday, we also do have the Fed interest rate decision. It is fair to assume that there won't be any cut, but what is said afterwards, that is really going to move the market. And we did have, I believe it was Friday or Thursday, Trump kind of alluding to discussions with Powell and kind of signaled his openness to rate cuts. This discussion afterwards is going to really solidify that, because clearly the market didn't really believe Trump all that much, because clearly the stock market didn't really move higher because of that. So that one's going to be a big one. Thursday, we have PCE, so that's going to be a big data point as well. Aside from that, just the typical stuff for Thursday, so initial jobless claims and so forth. Friday, we have non-farm payroll, unemployment, and ISM manufacturing. So a lot of big data this week. Even when it comes down to earnings, a lot of big data points. A lot of big fintechs, SoFi, PayPal. We also have Meta, Microsoft, Robinhood, Apple, Amazon. So a lot of big names. And depending on what they give for future guidance and how their key metrics come in line with expectation, that is going to really move the market. And I've noticed that this earnings, like the market is focusing more on the key metrics rather than anything. I think in 2024, it was going to be like future guidance, how companies were kind of dealing with the current circumstances of higher inflation and so forth. So this time around, market is actually looking at the true data. So that could really benefit SoFi quite significantly. So yeah, should make for a very interesting week. One thing I do want to bring up that is relatively bullish already is this right here. And I've noticed that there wasn't really any official news about this from SoFi. And in the past, SoFi has actually done PR saying that, hey, we're participating in this Fireside chat. Join us. There was this that did come out. So SoFi Technology Management to meet Citizens JPM. And this is going to be on the 31st, held in Boston. And I looked on JPM's website. There isn't any official big conference or anything along those lines. So this is just a one-on-one, it looks like, with SoFi. So I think in reality, going into this big week and SoFi's earnings, for SoFi to already book this, I think that's relatively optimistic about their upcoming earnings. Of course, I could be reading between the lines a little bit too much for that, but I think generally speaking, this is pretty good. Let me know your viewpoint on that. And one additional piece of data just to kind of share with you about this, JPM did initiate coverage in April. So April 25th gave a buy $17 price target, which at the time SoFi was sitting at $12.90, giving a 31.78% upside. So clearly, I think maybe after the 31st or even after SoFi's earnings, we should be seeing some pretty good ratings from them on a side note. So let me know your general viewpoint on all that. Going into this upcoming week, 11.68% of the free float is being shorted, and shorts have been honestly doing not really all that much. So they've been sitting kind of relatively quiet, and based on the last disclosures from the NASDAQ, they did roughly return about 22-ish million shares more than what we previously thought between June the 29th and July the 14th. So again, another kind of optimistic and bullish data point in my opinion, but anticipate them to be fairly active if, let's say, some data points or even SoFi's earnings don't really come in line with expectations. As far as the options goes, you see a consensus from the bulls standpoint for it to be roughly around that $23.50 to $14 range for ending this upcoming Friday. Bears are anticipating anticipating for it to be sub 19, 19 to 18 roughly. So there's definitely a lot more upside still anticipated with Friday, with it closing exactly at 21.20. That does mean that the 21.50 strike prices and above all expire worthless. So that's kind of the big chunk of that right there. So don't anticipate any crazy bump up in the stock price come Monday. Aside from all that fun stuff though, with it at 21.20 where it did close on Friday, it is trading between this R3 and this R2. Most likely it is going to be SoFi's earnings. That's going to be kind of the breaking point, whether it breaks below this R2 or potentially above this R3. As I mentioned, SoFi's earnings, there is a anticipated roughly 10% move. So almost like a $2 and change cent in either direction is anticipated. So again, just anticipate that to either signal a breakout, which could allude to like a $25 to $28 kind of range, or it could cause a little bit more of a consolidated pullback to, let's say, 18 to kind of between that 18 to 16. So just anticipate a lot of volatility at the end of the day as a byproduct of all that. And most likely, come Wednesday, we will be getting a hell of a lot of new ratings posted officially, or even, I guess, after hours, potentially on Tuesday. But going into this upcoming week, things are looking pretty a-okay. Because of the recent kind of consolidation and volatility, you see stochastic RSI relatively oversold, so that could really stand to benefit SoFi going into this upcoming week as well. So nonetheless, anticipate a lot of extreme moves. So if you are wanting to dollar cost average, day trade, swing trade, or whatever floats your boat, just kind of take note of some of the strong support and resistance points. But in my opinion, I think there is going to be an initial pullback, as I mentioned in my previous video, but later this week, it is going to recover to most likely another new 52-week high. But let me know your general thoughts on SoFi. What's your kind of viewpoint on kind of equivalent the Super Bowl of all weeks, both with data points and with companies unveiling the earnings? So what's your general thoughts on everything? Hopefully everyone's having a good weekend. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.